every season.
Week to me would be like what I would call the first full week because technically besides girls tennis and then Friday night's football games, and it's only two of them, we don't really have anything else that's actually regular season going on until next week. So I would say with volleyball and football getting into full swing next week, and then you start getting some cross country and stuff like that sprinkled in. I would say that for me, Mason, I consider next week to kind of be getting things in full swing.
Yeah, I agree because honestly, you just kind of get your toes a little wet with girls tennis on Monday and I believe Monday and Thursday, and then you've got football on Friday. So there's not a whole ton of stuff
Monday,
going
Wednesday,
on.
and Friday.
Yeah, you don't got a whole ton of stuff going on, but once we get 3 football games on the air, you get volleyball Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, you get cross country in there. That's when it really starts to kick up. So then it's like, well, that's when we're in the actual fall sports season.
And for you, what would you think, Casey?
I would say when everything gets in swing, and especially going into next week when volleyball gets started and everything like that. I was going to – does it feel weird having a week 0 high school football game this year? Because we haven't for a while.
A couple of years. Yeah, it does seem a little bit different. I almost feel a little rushed in a way, having to mentally prepare. For the game on Friday night, I'll be ready to go, and I'm looking forward to it. It does feel. I was where was I yesterday? Media Day. Where were we? Oh, ESAC yesterday. We were up at ESAC Media Day, and was talking to Coach McCullough and Coach Bachman, and I'm like, wow, it doesn't feel like it's here yet. It just, Dale Wagner, I think, was in on that conversation too, and it just didn't feel like we're at that point of the year where literally we're going to have games and everything else.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, it was kind of the way you said it. You're going to be ready to go, obviously, on Friday morning when you roll out of bed and realize it's football season. But feels like almost Monday through Thursday, you're like, is this, like, until you start putting your sheets together and all that stuff, it's like, is this really the time of the year that we're getting back into football and volleyball and all that stuff? But I think that, it's a little odd. I have never done a week 0 game, so it'll be my first time as well. But it'll be weird to think that, I think when I saw something online, there's only like 3,000 games across the nation. It's like the second lowest week of the entire football season is week 0. And I know that that's just kind of a weird feeling is, 2 of those games are going to be, right here.
Yeah, and we won't have a scoreboard show this Friday night with just the 2 games going on. So I think that's part of it for me. I've gotten so used to having the Friday night scoreboard show after the games to not be having that just doesn't feel like it's a real week if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even you think about it though, we're not even a month removed from being at state baseball and state softball.
Yep.
And we're already talking about football coming up on Friday. Tennis has been underway for a couple weeks now.
Yeah.
That's the part that's crazy to me is that, and I don't know, it might be a little bit of a bad thing in a way is that, you go straight from it, you got the dead week, and then all of a sudden you turn around, hey, Monday we got tennis going on today. That's sometimes you got to give the kids a little bit of a break, but, that's just the way it is now.
It is, and that's the one thing that I was surprised last year. Not that, we knew they had moved girls tennis to the fall. But literally, if you're on one of those teams that make state softball and then you're on your high school's tennis team, you have dead week, and then you're right back into the swing of things. And it almost does feel like, and I get it that they're trying to get the tennis season kind of over before you start maybe having that potential for cold and bad weather, which they were used to playing in early in the spring anyway. But the last thing you want to do is host the state tournament when it's 37 degrees and northwest winds at 25 mile an hour, those type of things. But it almost seems like the girls' tennis season is kind of rushed now to be able to get it over quickly and early enough in the year that the weather doesn't get bad. But it almost seems, too, that they start it too early. And that's, for the kids. You feel for anybody that's plays softball and then has to turn around and you get just 6 days off and you're right back into practice for the next season. And I guess that's similar to the way we are with so many of the sports nowadays. You look at the fact that baseball and softball players are practicing baseball and softball long before the spring sports.
They're also running track during that time too.
Track kids and stuff are practicing track, before the basketball and wrestling seasons end, and everything is so pushed together nowadays that. It just makes it interesting. So.
Yeah, it does for sure. And I know that it kind of leads into my next thing is that the preview shows are going on this week and stuff like that. I think volleyball coming up on the 20th, which will be Thursday at 6:30 here on KCAM, and then it'll re-air again. On Sunday at 10:30, and then the football preview show coming up on the 22nd, which will be Saturday at 8 a.m., and then the football preview show will re-air again the following week on the 27th, a week from Thursday at 6:30. So we'll have all that. We'll talk with Jeff and Mason, going to sit down and talk with all of our area coaches, and without giving away too much, you guys have had a chance to talk to quite a few of the coaches. What are kind of some of your things you're excited for now, getting the chance to talk to the coaches coming into the season?
Honestly, you kind of said the word I was going to say is just the excitement from all the coaches. Is the possibilities of how good some of our teams can be. Just listening to a lot of the coaches, they're excited, and the kids are excited when we go around to media days. So I'm thinking that that's one of the things you get to look forward to. And the other thing is just kind of we graduated a really good group of seniors last season, so you're going to see a lot of new faces around the area. And I think that's kind of the fun part about our job is, if we were doing professional stuff, you see the same faces over and over, but at the high school level and even the college level, you only get a certain amount of years with certain kids, so it's now you reset and you kind of see what is next for some of these schools.
And for me, it's the excitement that I hear in a lot of the coaches, and not just about their own teams. I've had several coaches say IKM Manning could be a state team this year. Kemper's going to be, everybody's kind of interested in what happens with Kemper this year and where that team goes from the run that they've been on. Peyton Sheridan's really excited about where their team is at here going into the beginning of the season. We were at Carroll Media Day yesterday, and I think their kids were really excited. Brandon Steiger up at ESAC, we were at their media day. He's really excited about what they got going on. Natalie Lewis down at Coon Rapids, we had 3 media days yesterday, so we saw a lot of teams and a lot of kids. Natalie really excited. It just has high energy. You got a great setter in Amelia Cook. She's going to have to work in with some new hitters this year that really hadn't gotten a chance to swing a lot, in previous years. But that's part of the fun of, I think, high school sports. You look at it and, we've known the name Malia Clayberg forever down at Coon, and Breeley was there before her, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, Amelia Eddy and Addie Spangler and those girls are going to get their opportunity, and they've kind of sat back and waited, and now it's their turn. And I know, talked to Krista Bunt, the new head coach up at South Central Calhoun, and know her well from her time over at Glidden Ralston, and she did a really good job there, and she's really excited. They've got 3 girls that each had over 200 kills a year ago back. She feels like she's got a great setter. She feels like they're passing the ball well. So there's that excitement before the season starts, and I think everybody kind of feels that they've got a chance to be good this year and maybe be special. And for me, Mason, that's kind of the fun part of it is that energy at the beginning of the year that every program has, because there's an excitement of what they can accomplish.
There is, and then I feel, sorry to interrupt you, Mason, but then I also feel like is that after the season starts and you get all the serious coaches like, okay, we got to do this, this, and this, and this, and then we got to get better at this, and
you get some of those. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Derek Reischauer talked a lot about the fundamentals and the footwork and the basics that you need to be successful.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to say is, the new possibilities of matchups between teams this year with, us condensing down to just 3 conferences. We're going to see Carroll Kemper volleyball again this year. We're going to see, all those different Hawkeye 10 matchups for Carroll. We're going to have IKM Manning and Audubon maybe facing off with some of the Rolling Valley teams that we haven't seen them face off with before. And then, the only bad one is ESAC and South Central just kind of the same thing. I mean, it's good for them because they know that the teams in their conference are just kind of the same, but, they're about the same schedule we've seen them before. But that's kind of the thing that I would bring up to a lot of the coaches in the Rolling Valley when we would do our interviews for the preview show is, what is it like now knowing that you bring in 2 schools from the area? You're not going to have to travel too far, but you know that you have these new possibilities of games and game planning and figuring out new players and systems and stuff.
Yeah, and especially with that Rolling Valley, 2 teams that I think almost everybody that I've talked to feels like are going to contend. I haven't talked to one coach yet out of that conference that hasn't said IKM Manning's probably not the favorite, going into the season, but there's going to be a lot of competition. And I remember talking, with Coach Reischauer down at Exira Kimballton, and I said, God, you look at over the years, and Woodbine's been really good the last few years and had some really good teams in the last 5 years. Cam's had some really good teams. Boyer Valley's always consistent. You had this run with Coon Rapids Bayard, and they win the league a year ago, and now you add into that mix. Glidden's had some really good teams. Now you add in IK Manning and Audubon. That league could be pretty wide open, and there could be a lot of very, very competitive, matches night in and night out. And I think that's going to, raise the fun level and maybe bring some bigger crowds. One of the things that I always noticed, and it's one of my favorite parts of doing what we do, not just because sometimes all the kids, but when we have 2 local schools play each other, the crowds generally are really big. Mm-hmm. And they're into the game because everybody knows everybody. And this is not a shot at like a Shenandoah or something like that. But when Kemper would play Shenandoah, they're 2 hours away from each other. A lot of times you didn't get a big crowd just because it's a big drive, for either fan base, depending on who's on the road. So now when you're getting things a little bit more condensed, you imagine now that Carroll and Kemper are playing again, and in basketball it's going to be twice a year. I'm imagining, imagine how full those gyms are going to be and the energy level that's going to be there. And for us announcers, I think that adds energy to us when we go. When you walk into a gym that's empty, you realize you've got to provide the energy for your listeners. But when you walk into a gym that's full and stuff, and the energy's already in the gym, it's pretty easy to have that energy yourself.
Makes it easy for you to get up and get ready and go and go call a game. I will say that.
Yep.
I remember calling the Kemper. Would they take on Clarinda to go to state in volleyball a couple of years ago at the high school here in town? And as soon as the crowd started filing in, and you could feel like if the players got on the court, like it was packed.
Yep.
And it was jam packed, and you could feel the energy. And it just made it. It's part of sports that absolutely makes it fantastic, and why I do this job every day.
Yep.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had a whole ton of experience with it because, I'm still young, but I can vividly remember, Coon Rapids, Bayard, St. Albert girls basketball. Obviously, Coon would fall in that one, but, gym's packed, and Harlan's got a decent-sized gym, so it took a lot of people to get into there, and everyone was into the game. It was hard to see because I'm not the tallest dude in the world, and there was a lot of tall people in the back row, but, it was fun because there was tons of people in the gym, and it seemed like everyone, just cared about the game, and, they came in there to cheer on these high school athletes, which just makes it easier at the end of the day.
Yeah, I remember back when South Central Calhoun used to play Carroll High in basketball. They would also play Kemper. ESAC used to play Kemper. They played Carroll High before in basketball, and those were packed gyms because everybody knows everybody, so people want to go. And it's a short drive. So, yeah, I'm excited about the conference moves. I know Mason and I have joked that, there's only 3 schools, Boyer Valley, Woodbine, and Cam, in the Rolling Valley that aren't technically in our local area. We consider that, within about a half hour to 40-minute drive from us. But, they're not that far out of the area, and we almost feel like you should pick up the entire conference. Now, we're not going to drive over and do play-by-play at Woodbine against Boyer Valley or something like that. I'm not going to go that far. But, you feel like you cover that whole conference now. We cover all but 3 schools in that conference, and we're going to add some things to add a little bit of coverage for those schools. We're going to type in the scores now from all of the conference results on the bottom of our web pages and stuff when we do our Brinks Exterior Sports Report. So now you'll be able to find all the conference scores and stuff on the website to try and bring in. And we joked the Boyer Valley, I think it was softball coach, reached out to us in the postseason and wanted us to pick them up and start covering them. And it's like, you think about it, with 7 teams in that league, Boyer Valley might get on the radio 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Because they're playing against, all of our other local schools. So it won't be like we're covering them, but in a way, they're getting coverage from us. I still remember it would have been back when, like Drew and Derek Shirkey and Alex Cook and that group, Jake Danner and those guys were going through over at Arweva, and they were really, really good. And Xyro and Kimballton was good. Kuhn, was good. And I remember there was a year I went down to do, and this is the reason I was thinking of Arweva. It was Arweva at Xyro and Kimballton basketball doubleheader, and I walked in, and Doug Newton was the head coach for the Spartan boys at that time, and of course Tom Peterson was still coaching the girls. And I walked in, and they both kind of said to me, like, did you pick us up? Are we one of your local schools this year? And I'm like, no, why? And they're like, we've seen you almost every game this year. We ended up doing both Arweva games, both Kuhn games, I think both Glidden games, and then they played Ike and Manning. So I think we covered them like 7 times that year, and they almost felt like at that point like they were one of your local schools, but they weren't at that time. So yeah, we're going to probably see some teams a little bit more just outside of our, what we call the local area, probably more than what we have in the past. And I think that brings a little excitement as well.
I think so too. I think that especially for the schools that might not get, as much coverage, especially from other places in the area, to see somebody there. I think that when the kids see that we're at games, like not to toot our own horns, but I feel like there's an excitement for them too. You know what I mean? Like they see us there, maybe it brings out a little more energy for them too. And sometimes you get better games that way.
Yeah, they know they're going to be on the radio. Yeah, there is an excitement. I've been told that many a times over the years since I've been in this business. That the kids do see you walk in and they know you're there. And heck, I went over to a scrimmage over in Ogden on Saturday to watch a few of our area volleyball teams, and a bunch of the kids said hi and smiled and stuff when you walked into the gym. And, yeah, they noticed. We weren't even there to broadcast. It was just going over to watch and kind of learn a little bit about both of those teams coming in. And we're going to do the same thing. Technically this weekend on Saturday, Mason, are we going to cover almost every single one of our area schools?
I think all but 3 is what we said on yesterday, because I think if we split up and we go to Atlantic's tournament and we go to Lake City, if they're still holding that one, we would cover all but 3 of our local volleyball teams.
Wow. I think we have 5 or 6 of them down at Atlantic, and then 3, I think, up at the South Central Calhoun scrimmages on Saturday. So, that's the kind of the cool thing. That's part of the reason why some people say, God, why do you go to volleyball tournaments pretty much every Saturday? And it's like kind of hard not to go when you walk into a gym and 5 of the teams that you cover are at the tournament. Yep. You get a chance to see a lot of the kids and coaches and kind of watch a lot of matches that are important to your area and to your schools. And sometimes we shoot video highlight reels and then throw those out. Other times, Jeff Stroyhan goes and takes pictures for us. So we always find a way to try to promote the area and promote the kids. So.
Yeah, we will step away. We'll take a break. We'll talk some more high school sports when we come back here on the CB Sports Network Rewind Show on KCIM.
Since 1968, Mackey Motors has been serving Lake City and the surrounding communities with new and certified pre-owned vehicles. Mackey Motors is a full-service dealership providing oil changes in our Quick Lube Express bays, a service department with world-class trained technicians, a body shop and collision center with the latest equipment, a full vehicle detailing department, or come talk with one of our highly knowledgeable sales staff.
Recipient of the GM Mark of Excellence Award for 16 years running. Together, let's drive at Mackey Motors in Lake City. MackeyMotors.com. Are you ready for a new opportunity? Dries Company is hiring. Dries Company is looking for experienced journeyman electricians for service and commercial work. Join a growing family-owned company that values hard work, integrity, and its employees. Enjoy health insurance, paid time off, retirement benefits, employee discounts, job bonuses, and opportunities to grow your career. Put your experience to work with a company celebrating 93 years in business. Apply at driesco.com or send your resume to sdries@driesco.com.
We are back with the CB Sports Network Rewind Show here on 1380 AM, 95.1 FM at KCIM. Casey Miners, Jeff Blankman, Mason Nealon with you. And Jeff, we mentioned the preview shows going on this week. We're going to talk with all of our area football and volleyball coaches coming up on this week. We'll talk with them, and then they'll re-air again on Saturday or on Sunday and on Thursday of next week as well. So, again, we've got a bunch of coaches that we're going to be talking with. And tell people to tune in here on KCIM coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, each of the shows airs twice, and then we will post them out there online for people to be able to find them as well. But we want you to come to the radio first and tune in there. But here's just the list of coaches. It's amazing to me sometimes that not everybody, and I get it, like, for us, ESAC against Audubon or whatever would be a local matchup, but technically them schools are almost an hour away. So to them, they're not local to each other. So it's sometimes not everybody knows what schools we all cover. Yeah. So I want to run through who's all going to be on the shows with us. We'll talk with volleyball wise. Riley Ludwig with the Carroll Tigers, Rusty Wintermote with Kemper, Colby Schumann with Glidden Ralston, Natalie Lewis with Coon Rapids Bayard, Sarah Shirkey with Arweva, Derek Reischauer with Xyrocrine Kimballton, Nikki Ubel with Peyton Sherdan, Krista Bunt with South Central Calhoun, Brandon Steiger with ESAC County, Molly Lang from Audubon, and then McKaylee Cron from IKM Manning. And then on the football side of things, we'll talk with Ryan Steinkamp of Kemper, Craig Rowetter of Carroll, Eric McCullough of ESAC, Corey McCarville of IKM Manning, Brian Case of South Central Calhoun, Tony Naparella with Glidden Ralston, Nathan Lindsay with Coon Rapids Bayard, Austin Stolk with Arweva, and Sean Burks with Audubon. So that's kind of the list of the coaches that are going to join us. And I do want to remind everybody too, sometimes people are like, do you talk to cross country and swimming? Yeah, we do. Those interviews are posted directly to our CB Sports Network podcast center. So you can go to the website at sports.1380kcim.com, and there's like a high level on the very top of the page. There's a list of different things, and then there's another one that's underneath that. Click on the podcast underneath that, and it'll take you right to the recap, the weekly interviews and recap part of our podcast, and that's where all of those coach interviews are going. I know I've got three cross-country coaches yet to catch up with. Mason, I know you're working on cross-country, swimming, and we've got some of the tennis ones posted, but still some tennis to do as well.
Yeah, and the tough part about some of that is, like, tennis starts back in August, but for swimming, they don't start for a little while, so it's like, when do you want to interview? Because sometimes, for Deb, she's got to deal with both guys and girls, and, you got to give it a little time to figure out, what you got coming back and what you've got going on there. So, you got to, sometimes you'll have interviews earlier and a little bit later as well.
I just wanted to pass along here. Alan Honlos, one of our really great listeners over in the Glidden Ralston area and a good guy. He just sent me this text. I'm just going to read it. I haven't had a chance to kind of go all the way through it. But my senior year of basketball, us and Carroll, both undefeated, ranked in the top 3. The people were lining up to get into the gym when they got out of school that day. The PA guy had to announce for people to squeeze together to get more people in the gym.
That's crazy.
That is, but that's what's amazing about it. Yep. And I'd love to see that type of attendance come back to high school sports. It does seem like in the last 10 to 15 years that you've seen, people not as supportive unless teams are really good. I grew up in Dow City, and our basketball teams weren't the best. When I was in high school, but the gym was still full for every home game. The parents, the grandparents, the older people in town that had graduated from Dow City and didn't even have anybody playing. Every Tuesday and Friday night, if we were home, they were sitting in the gym and cheering us on, and that was, that community support was great, and hopefully we'll get those numbers back up for the area schools and high school sports. I know everybody's busy nowadays, and
you also get in for free when you can just sit on your couch and pull it up on YouTube or something like that too. So
I know, yeah.
And granted, like, video is great. I'm not knocking anybody for doing video because we do video. We're videoing right now, but how much is that urgency to go out and watch a game when
Right.
you can sit on your couch and don't have to
Yeah.
pay a dime to get in.
Yeah, no, and I will say part of the reason I video is for the family down in Florida or Arizona or California that can't get here. I hope if you live here in town or out in the country or something that not that I don't want you watching. Don't get me wrong. But it's more for the family. For me, it's more for the family and people that maybe grew up here. I can remember, and it wasn't video at the time, but it was before we started video, and I talked to Adam Haluska here a couple of weeks ago about being inducted into our CB Sports Network Hall of Fame, and I'm finalizing the first article that we will be putting out in recap of the 10 athletes and 3 coaches, and we'll kind of put a new one out every about probably 3 weeks or so once I get that first one done and stuff. But I was talking to Adam, and I didn't even think about this, and he's like, we were talking, and I'm like, I didn't get a chance to cover you in high school, and he's like, when did you come to town? And I says 2004. I covered Sean and then Blake, and he's like, God, I almost felt like you covered me, and he goes, well, part of it was because my brothers played, and you covered both of their careers, and he goes, I just listened to you on the radio, because even when I was playing in Europe, they found a way to be able to get the games broadcasted to him over in Europe. So he would sit there and listen to his brothers play while he was, in Europe playing basketball and stuff. So it's to now have the ability to do video where he could pull it up and watch the game over in Europe or in those type of things is the reason why a lot of the reason why I want us being able to do video and as much video as we possibly can. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, again, the preview show's coming up this week. We'll have volleyball on the 20th, which will be Thursday at 6:30 right here on KCIM. And then that will re-air again coming up on a Sunday on 8:23 at 10:30. Football will be on Saturday coming up on the 22nd at 8 a.m., and then it'll re-air again the following Thursday, the 27th at 6:30. Mentioned that tennis in full swing. We've had a bunch of stuff going on. We had tennis in action last night. It sounded like Carroll had a pretty good night the other night with, it was Bella Lou that captured her championship?
Yes. Bella went 2-0 last night, or yesterday. I want to say last night.
It was yesterday.
Yesterday they started at 9 o'clock in the morning, but Carroll and Audubon and Denison Schleswiger were down at Lewis Central. It was kind of I never had seen this type of a setup, but it was really kind of cool. They must have seeded them. And then you had 1 against 4 and 2 against 3 in the semifinals. The winners went ahead and played for the championship, and the losers played for third place. And Bella went 2-0 to bring home a championship. Lily Fries from Carroll had won her first matchup and then ended up falling in the championship matchup. And then for Audubon, their doubles teams both finished up in third place after losing, in their opening round match. They bounced back and did really well, and stuff in their third place matchup. Vivian Jackson and Reagan Hoffman ended up winning over the 2 young ladies from Carroll, and Mirabelle Abraham and Lucy Abraham. And then Jordan Speed and Ava Mulbauer of Audubon also won over the Carroll number 2 doubles team in Audrey Hegrick and Elia Mickelson. So I think a pretty good day for both teams. I know Bella's really excited. We had the Carroll Girls Tennis Media Day last week, and I thank her for writing down the names. Mason wasn't able to attend that morning, and so generally when we have to split up, Casey, you know how it is. You have to find somebody to write the names of the kids as you're taking the pictures. So you want to take the picture and then have somebody write them in that order so you can match things up. But Bella wrote for me that day, and she's really excited, played a ton of tennis during the summer, traveling around. She was in Minnesota and in several different states around the Midwest and around the country playing a ton of tennis and had a lot of success. And I think she's kind of rolled that into the start of the season for her. And I think she's looking to have a big year. I know for Audubon, Vivian Jackson's going to be their number 1 probably all year, a talented young player. But, in talking with Coach Nissen down there, their players enjoy doubles more than they do singles. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them in a lot of the tournaments that they're in and
do
a lot
doubles.
of the like maybe the postseason that they stack their doubles teams more than the individuals and stuff. So hopefully that will play out well for them. But you saw a couple of third-place finishes for both their doubles teams yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and talking of success, Kemper yesterday hosting St. Albert and Clarinda, Charlotte Schwabe 2-0 in singles, and I think still undefeated on the season.
Yep.
As she, picking up where she left off last year, and then her and Marissa Anto were both able to pick up wins and doubles and go 2-0 there as well. So, for a girl that was coming in ranked number 6, I think she's kind of living up to that expectation so far of starting the season off undefeated, and more than likely is going to be a favorite to contend to get down to state.
I think she'll be the favorite to win the Hawkeye 10 probably this year. I know she handled the girl from St. Albert pretty well yesterday, and St. Albert's always got some really good girls tennis and really good boys tennis. I think she beat the Narmi girl who's really good, and it was a fairly convincing victory if I remember correctly. I'm actually going to look it up here real quick because I have the results in front of me. Won 8-2, so that's a pretty convincing victory. So that tells me that Charlotte's really focused, and I think she's poised to have a great year, and I would be absolutely shocked if she doesn't make it down to the state tournament this year.
She's had so much success in all the sports that she's done.
Yes.
You talk about, being a first-team Rewind girl in softball field and then turning right around a couple weeks later, and now you're all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, we knew she was going to be the number one on their team coming into the year, but had a lot of success in last year, at the state tournament. So I'm not shocked that she's come in focused and ready to play.
Yeah, and you look at the Schwabe family, from Izzy, who played college tennis and was a great tennis player and had a nice little volleyball career while she played it, and then Jordan was absolutely, fantastic as a softball player and everything, and then you throw Maverick in there as a golfer, and now, Izzy, and they've had a lot of success in that family on the athletic fields and just in life in general. But I'm excited for when Carol and Kemper play, partially because they've played together for all these years.
Yep.
This is the first year that Carol has their own program, but that Bella Lou Schwabe matchup
could be really good.
Going to be interesting to see how that plays out. They were their number 1 and number 2. They were teammates a year ago. They played doubles together. They're friends. They hang out outside of the world of tennis and outside of school. So I think it's going to be really interesting because that both of them are going to want to win that one.
Well,
so
and they know what they like.
The intensity level for that Charlotte Schwabe and Bella Lou matchup, I think, should be pretty entertaining.
I agree 100%. I think it'll be really nice. I think Mason's looking forward to that. Send Mason to go that one.
We're gonna have to look at the date and see what else we got.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm not 100% sure on when the date is because I believe it's a little bit later into the season.
I think
when
so
they play
as well.
that. You would have kind of got a taste of that if it didn't get rained out earlier because I know Carol and Kemper were gonna host St. Albert, and not St. Albert, St. Ed's, I believe, early in the season, and it got rained out. But yeah, again, it's kind of what I said earlier. You open the door with, a new program to the possibilities of matchups between, like that, two girls that were teammates a year ago and now play each other here. It's kind of the same thing with cross country is we're going to have Carol and Kemper runners that were together a season ago kind of running next to each other.
Yeah, and, I will apologize to Kemper girls tennis for yesterday. You feel bad when there's, a triangular going on in town. I'd love to have been able to get out there and watch part of it, maybe grab some video interviews. But between trying to interview all of our football, volleyball, cross country, swimming coaches and stuff that we've got going on and trying to get everything ready, and then we're running around to media days, didn't even have 5 minutes of free time to be able to try and swing down to Grand Park yesterday and pull in there and watch a little bit of the match. So you feel bad when you don't get to something that's right here in town, but had 5 coach interviews yesterday between 8 and noon, and then pretty much was on the road running around we had media day in Coon, and we had to come back and do media day at Carroll High, and then from there we ran up to Lakeview for media day. So Mason and I had a fairly busy Monday to get the week started.
All the running
and it's
around.
Fun.
Yeah.
Not complaining. Just it's. I think sometimes people don't realize all of the things that we have to do on the backside of things to be able to produce the coverage that that we do. So just kind of out to some of the people that reached out to me that weren't real happy that we didn't get to a home meet yesterday. There are reasons sometimes that we can't always get to places. Yeah. So
we will step away. We'll take another break. We'll talk about that new AP poll that came out from College Sports when we come back on the KCIM Sports Rewind Show.
Hi, this is Sean Yost with Champion Ford. When you're shopping for a used vehicle, you deserve more than just a good price. You deserve confidence. That's exactly what you'll find with our certified pre-owned vehicles. Each one is thoroughly inspected and includes a 3-month, 3,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty, plus a 7-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. Stop in today. Let's find the right vehicle for you. Champion Ford, where everybody wins. See dealer for details.
I'm Dr. Cecilia Brewington. If you're among the 40% of Americans ages 50 and older who are still not getting tested for colorectal cancer, you're out of excuses. Under the Affordable Care Act, the federal government will now require nearly all private insurance companies to cover virtual colonoscopy and other less invasive tests. More importantly, these tests would be covered with no copay. That means there are now a number of fully covered colorectal cancer screening exams available. Please talk to your doctor to see which of these tests are right for you. Don't be one of the thousands of Americans to die from a largely preventable disease that is nearly always treatable if found early. The best test is the one that you choose to use. There have never been more fully covered options to fit your lifestyle and your schedule. Take action. Get screened for colorectal cancer. You owe it to yourself and your loved ones. For more information on virtual colonoscopy, please visit radiologyinfo.org.
We are back with the CB Sports Network Rewind Show for you here this morning on 1380 AM, 95.1 FM at KCIM. College sports. Turn the wrong mic on there for a minute. College sports getting fun underway as well with the football season. I can't quite remember. I know the AP poll just got released, but they're already going to be they're a week away too, aren't they? With their week 0 games the last weekend in August.
In August, yeah. I don't know if we have anybody in the conferences. You know, the Big 10 or Big 12. But I guess is the two that
there usually is.
Yeah, is there somebody playing? Who's playing over in Ireland? That would be an early game.
It's usually week 0. I don't know who's playing over in Ireland, but I know that there's usually
at least typing frantically over here.
Usually, at least like a Kansas or somebody plays that week 0 game.
So of the week 0 matchups, North Carolina, TCU, and Ireland.
So
San Jose State at USC, NC State at Virginia, Jacksonville State at North Dakota State, Sacramento State at Eastern Michigan, Hawaii at Stanford, New Mexico State at Florida State, and Memphis at UNLV. So there's, a couple of, between USC and TCU, Stanford, there's a couple of big names in there that, you see Florida State as well.
Yeah, well, and even North Dakota or whatever for us. We've, Julia Felice played basketball up there, so you feel like you've got a connection a little bit to North Dakota.
Look at us, we're out of the loop. We didn't even know who's playing in Ireland, and that's coming up in just a little over a week.
None of us have a school playing there, so we're probably not as focused. It's hard for me to believe that college football is right around the corner. I know the Big Ten media days were not too long ago, and the Big Ten Network's been running around doing all of their stops at campuses. Have they been to Iowa yet, guys? Do you know?
I don't know. I have not been. I'm not sure yet if they've been to Iowa or not. I know that Iowa just had their Kids Day, fall practice open scrimmage thing that they do last weekend, and there was a pretty decent crowd out there that I saw, at least on social media.
They were at Nebraska on Saturday, so I'm assuming that they had to have probably been to Iowa or going to Iowa here very soon.
They're based out of Chicago, so you would think that Iowa would be one of the first.
But I don't know how they spread it out and separate it, and stuff. And but I usually do try to watch the one when they go to Nebraska. I would have been interested in the Iowa one this year because we've got a couple of young guys. One of them probably going to be number 1 on the depth chart at tight end.
I would imagine.
Yeah,
so.
I would imagine in DJ Vanami.
If not, he's going to see a lot of time.
What a story for him. Gets over there and has turned himself into a guy that is being talked about nationally, not just here in the state of Iowa, but you listen to national podcast on college football, and DJ Vanami's name is popping up on those discussions.
Is it Vanami, or are they finally getting it right?
Oh, God, no, they call him Vanami and everything else. But, yeah, there's been a few of them that have gotten it right. I was listening to think it was one on CBS or something the other day, and yeah, they're like, oh, DJ Vonamy from Iowa, and I'm like, oh, come on, guys. If you're a national dude, I know it's not easy. I do. But if you're going to talk about somebody, try to find out really hard how to say the name properly, especially when you got a guy that's might be the best tight end in that conference or one of the best tight ends in that conference.
They were even butchering it on TV for the Iowa. I remember, was it the Iowa-Oregon or Iowa-Indiana game? One of them.
Right.
And he was out there playing, and he made a catch. It was on CBS, and they called him Vonamy like almost all game until the I don't know what happened, but they got it corrected.
Yeah. Somebody got into the ear of the announcers. That's probably what happened, and passed that along. So. And it's not easy. I will be the first one. I'm not going to ever say that I haven't messed up a name or two in the process of trying to do a broadcast as well. But when you're making the big bucks and at that level, Vonamy is not that hard of a name to say until you say it the wrong way several times. Yeah,
I saw. I don't know who he was doing an interview with, but it was on social media, and he was talking about the tight end room and how competitive it's been this year. He obviously he goes in off the season he has. I think was Iowa's leading receiver last year. Off the season he has, and comes back. You expect him to be tight end number one, but also was kind of thrown in at tight end number one because Iowa's two other options got hurt last year.
Yep, and one of those guys is back this year, correct?
Yeah, one of them's back, but I'm imagining they're going to run a lot of two tight end sets. I mean, it's Iowa,
right?
I mean, a couple of years ago, T.J. Hawkinson and Noah Fant were on the same team, and they played both sides. They played both sides of the ball. I mean, it was you put them on one side of the line, you put the other one on the other side of the line, and
that's what I'm saying. Though the DJ is, I would say, is he could still block and he's still good, but he's just as good as a receiver. You could split him out in the slot. It gives you depth and everything. But I bring up the kids practice because he had a really. Have you seen some of the video from?
I have not.
So I'll try to find it and show you some. But I mean, DJ's making over-the-shoulder catches in the back of the end zone, and he had a great practice the other day.
And who would have thought when he was a stud quarterback as a junior that he would go on to have such a great, and then he had the injury issues, and they moved him to kind of the tight end wide receiver role, and Brock took over, and stuff when he was a senior, and what an amazing story to battle through, that basketball injury that he had that was just one of the scariest things that I've ever been a part of, I guess, in a way. I wasn't a part of it, but I was broadcasting the game when that injury happened. And for him to go on and have the career, I hope he has 100 catches this year. I hope he has a great game against my team. I just hope my team finds a way to win. But rooting really hard for DJ. He's just such a good kid.
And I will say this. He's a kid that bet on himself in a way, too, because he had offers to go play Colorado State, to go play FCS, but he was like, I'm going to go take a preferred walk-on at Iowa and bet on myself, and he did, and it's turned out, and it's been fantastic.
And Brayton Alford's doing the same thing. Had an opportunity to play at other places, and decided that he, wanted to be a Hawkeye, and
good choice.
And but he's bet on himself, and I it's going to be fun to watch how his career, develops and plays out. That's probably been the one thing that shines with what Coach Ferentz and his staff have done over the years, and they've developed, they've gotten kids that are those type of kids that want to come in and bust their tail and bet on themselves, and they've turned them into really NFL nice players. And you look at some teams like the Alabamas of the world, and they can do it. The Georgias, they just go out and get the 5-star kids and win on pure talent. Not saying that they don't coach them or any of those kind of things, but they're able to go out and get the 5-star kids that are shiny, and then you get Iowa that goes out and gets the kids that nobody else seems to want for the most part, at that level anyway, and they turn them into being as good or better than the 5-star kids when they walk away from, God, I just gave Iowa a recruiting pitch.
You've been glazing up Iowa here for a little bit. Are you sure you're feeling okay?
Never, but no. I mean, I've always respected Coach Ferentz. I can remember, and I'll give Iowa fans a hard time here, when he was hired and they were all screaming and hollering and complaining because they didn't want him, and we hired Bill Callahan. I said way back then, I'm like, I'll switch coaches with you. give me Coach Ferentz. You can have Callahan. I'd gladly give this guy to you. And that was before he even ruined the Nebraska program. So, I would have been much happier if he'd have done that in Iowa City than in Lincoln. So I've always had respect for Coach Ferentz.
Yeah,
so.
Just taking a look at the AP preseason poll. Ohio State comes in number 1. They received 41st place votes. Oregon was 2, Georgia 3, Notre Dame 4, Texas 5. Indiana was at 6, Miami 7, Texas A&M 8, Ole Miss 9, and then Oklahoma 10. So, question for you guys, because I know the way Jeff stands on this, and I'm the same way. Preseason polls are just out there for the blitz and the glamour and and everything like that.
It's to get clicks.
So, why aren't the teams that receive number 1 votes, you're always your teams that should be the top? Like if there's people out there that think they should, and I get it's voting into point system,
right?
But if there's people that think like, a Notre Dame who's got 6 first place votes sitting at number 4, like why are they not 3?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep. No, I get you. You got Indiana had what, like
One.
eight number 1
yep.
votes, and there's ranked like 6th.
Yeah.
And that's because you have some voters who must have put them all the way down at like 15 or 16 or 20 or something like that, so their point total didn't add up. Yeah. I've seen it before where one team gets more number 1 votes and is ranked 2, and and the team that has less number 1 votes is ranked number 1 because of the way they add up the points. And I'm sure that's probably the right way to go about it, but it also makes you wonder who's voting, how are they voting, and why are they voting the way they are voting.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say, I respect all the guys out at the Nebraska media that vote, and the reason I do is they literally will write an article every week about here was my rankings and here's why I ranked the way I did. So you at least get an idea of why they ranked, who they ranked, and where they ranked them at. That doesn't mean that they're right, it's an opinion thing. Years ago when I first got into this business, we were connected like we are now with Radio Iowa and with the Associated Press. I was able to vote in both polls, and I did. I voted for a long time in the Radio Iowa poll and in the AP poll because we were an affiliate of both and was able to do that. And the one thing I learned was it didn't matter how many hours I tried to read things online and stuff about teams in eastern Iowa. Never saw any of those teams play until I'd get into the Dome or something. It was really difficult to try and compare based off of what you read in an article, or saw online. Now, today you could go on. If you didn't have a job and you were a billionaire, you could sit there all day long and just watch every team play on YouTube every week after it'd be a little easier to rank. But it's difficult when you don't actually get to see teams play to rank them.
So you and I had this conversation last year, and I'm not going at Nebraska here with this comment, but, flying a little under the radar this year, is that the kind of the way you want it?
What's that now? Sorry, I was reading the text. Go ahead.
So I said, I'm not taking a shot at Nebraska with this, so I'm meaning this lighthearted.
Okay.
But you and I had the conversation last year when Nebraska came in ranked, that you're like, I don't want to be ranked because then it's like, you have to live up to the expectation. That's what I was just about to ask. Is that where you want to be, is flying under the radar?
I would rather be not ranked early and ranked high late and have a good season than start the year. How many times do you see a team ranked in the top 10 in the preseason poll that doesn't even finish in the rankings at all? I would rather be that team that is not ranked to start the year and ends the year in the top 10 and has to crawl and climb your way up the rankings than start high and fall fast.
I was going to say, it just happened to Florida State, 2 years ago, and then Clemson last year, and they start top 10, and then they fall to 0-3 to start the season. They're still somehow sitting at like 25.
Yeah. And it'll happen to somebody this year. It will. It happens every single year. By the way, and I know Casey will love this. Randy Snyder, another one of our great loyal listeners. Randy, how you doing? He wants to. What about the Cubs and Pete Crow Armstrong?
The great
right
game
here,
last night.
Right here on KCIM last night. I was literally sitting in here getting ready to edit interviews, and his home run early in the game that put him on the board happened. I was actually editing interviews, not being able to listen to the game when he hit the walk-off in the 10th last night. But is he MVP?
It's tough because as a Cubs fan, I don't want to sound biased and say yes, but I think he is. I mean, he's got the highest F-WAR out of anybody. It could be the first outfielder ever to go 40-40. To me, if you take him off the Cubs offense, they're a completely different team. If he is not on the Cubs are a completely different team.
Is he really the first outfielder that would go 40-40?
It's the first ever center fielder, I think, to lead the league that could go 40-40 and then have the highest defensive run save or whatever it is.
I'm old and my memory's not.
I'd
really
have to look it up, but I know
Eric
it's something
Davis
like
from
that.
the Reds had to have gone 30-30 back in the 90s.
Because
I
know
point,
Acuna
but I don't know if
a
he
couple
got
years
40-40.
ago when Acuna won an MVP, he was really close to 40-40. I don't know if he got it or not.
Okay.
But I think he could be the first outfielder to go 40-40 and then also have it's something else too with it.
Right.
Like I don't know if it's the highest because he's got his defensive run saves are well above whoever's in second place right now.
You know who could have probably done it is Ichiro.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks about him as a home run hitter. I was watching a special on him online here a couple of weeks ago, and they were like, the opposing teams and his teammates would watch him in batting practice, and he would launch everything over the fence. And somebody asked him one time why he didn't really hit a lot of home runs in games, and he goes, "It's not my role on this team." But they were like, his power was amazing. He just never really showed it, and stuff. So yeah, he's one of my favorite baseball players of all time. Yeah. So
I think it's gonna. I think PCA has got a really strong argument for NL MVP if Ohtani does not pitch the rest of the year.
Right, Randy, MVP. Text me, let me know. Randy Snyder is the MVP.
I'm not giving PCA the MVP after walking off my socks last night. No chance.
I forgot you were a Sox fan.
I was sitting there in a little agony because I'm like, and you had to walk off the Sox. And I honestly, as a Sox fan, I'm not huge into baseball, but I still enjoy, keeping up every so often. I was just like, I'm a fan of PCA, honestly. Listening to him, watching the games on TV. He can hit the ball really well. He's fast. He's just a really good overall baseball player. And
I put it this way: playing at Wrigley, you've got to have a swagger, you've got to have an energy to you, and he is the perfect player to play for the Cubs and play at Wrigley Field because he's got, he's so good defensively. He's got that swagger with him. He's got the everything you need from a superstar in baseball. And you put him in Chicago. I really think it's a lot like when Javier Baez with the Cubs. Like his first couple years, he was, fantastic. He played with the swagger, and then when he left Chicago, it wasn't always there because it wasn't you didn't get the same atmosphere type thing you get as you do playing at Wrigley.
Yeah, and by the way, Randy Snyder says, of course, he is the MVP. I kind of had a feeling that one was coming. Real quick, because I know we're already past the time, and we're going to end up going close to an hour here today, which is awesome. Can the Cubs catch the Brewers? Brewers have the best record in the National League right now.
That's tough.
Can they catch them? Is there enough games left?
There's plenty of games left, but you just got to hope that the Brewers go on a skid. The Cubs are coming off not a very good weekend against St. Louis. But last night's win might spark them a little bit. I hope they catch them. It'd be nice because I really don't want to play in a wild card. Then have to go out to L.A. I'd much rather, get the 3 seed and have to get a host the first couple of.
Careful bragging about the Cardinals beating the Cubs. Jeff Honnold may wreck because he's a huge Cardinal fan, and they're not very good. So when he gets a chance for somebody to say something good.
I will say this: the Cardinals had the first rookie ever to hit 3 home runs in his debut.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which was pretty cool.
It was. That'll wrap up KCIM Sports Rewind for you on this Tuesday. Check out a podcast of it in just moments.
Western Iowa's news and classic hits